My name is Pam Lee, and I am a member of the Sunday Services team. We use the term multi-generational quite often here at UUCCI when we're talking about our congregation. And when I hear that, I always think of the children. Not having any young ones in my family circle any longer, I took some time to remember and reflect on children. I've been thinking about the light in a child's eyes when they get something or when they see something that delights them, and you get to hear those giggles when they're playing and pretending, and you hear those little skeeter voices going a mile a minute, or when they're frustrated and angry and hurt, and the feelings just pour out of them without any adult filters. They are honest, they are open, they are vulnerable. When treated with love, encouragement, and guidance, they grow and they blossom. Last Sunday, I got to spend some time during the Sunday service in the nursery, and Miss Holly cooked me tea and corn on the cob seasoned with salad dressing, ketchup, and paprika. It was delightful, and I smiled the entire time. I don't know what you all were doing out here, but I was having a great time. Last October, we had an outdoor service, and I served as worship associate, and the congregation stayed in their cars in the parking lot. You may remember drums and a podium and a pickup truck. Well, after the service, I was going around to the cars with Reverend Nick to say hello to people, and Quinn Rogo jumped out of his mom's van and hugged me really tight. I was just bowled over at how good that felt and how long it had been since a child hugged me tight. I was very touched. My children had grandparents and aunts and uncles that loved them, and they were very lucky in that. But they didn't have a church family. I didn't grow up with church. And at the time my kids were young, I didn't think it was necessary. Now, watching the children at UUCCI, I regret that attitude. There are children all over the world who need so much, and I'm sure we all do what we can in that area. The kids here at UUCCI are right in front of us, and we all have the opportunity to interact, enjoy, and nurture. I know that I get as much as I give, if not more, when I spend time with the child. It truly does take a village, and we are a loving and caring village. The moment comes when a choice arises, a holy moment. A decision must be made. Do I remain as I am, or do I risk inching, leaping, flowing in another direction? Do I risk what I think I already know and already am? Do I forfeit my security for the possibility that a simple shift may alter the course of my life, even perhaps the life of another? I long to let go of all that restrains me so that I might pursue the impossible and surmount the insurmountable. To let go of anger, to let go of the need to be in control, to forgive a friend, to forgive myself, to refuse what thwarts my spirit, to refuse what limits my mind, to surrender to what will come, to surrender to this holy moment I have let slip away for too long.
O'Donoghue. In out of the way places of the heart, where your thoughts never think to wander, this beginning has been quietly forming, waiting until you were ready to emerge. For a long time, it has watched your desire, feeling the emptiness growing inside you. noticing how you willed yourself on, still unable to leave what you had outgrown. It watched you play with the seduction of safety and the gray promises that sameness whispered, heard the waves of turmoil rise and relent, wondered, would you always live like this? Then the delight when your courage kindled and out you stepped onto new ground, your eyes young again with energy and dream, a path of plenitude opening before you. Though your destination is not clear, you can trust the promise of the opening. Unfurl yourself into the grace of beginning that is one with your life's desire. Awaken your spirit to adventure. Hold nothing back. Learn to find ease in risk. Soon you will be home in a new rhythm. For your soul senses the world that awaits you. This past week, I attended a day-long class at the Columbus Learning Center. It was the kickoff for this year's Leadership Bartholomew County, which is a cross-sector leadership development program that has existed in our community for over 4 decades now. In fact, our own UUCCI member and board trustee, Lynette Farless, used to lead the program. Along with about 30 other people, we began a year-long journey to learn more about leadership, theory, and practice, as well as find tangible ways to get more involved and serve this community that we all love. We had homework to take before the first day of school. The nerve, am I right? Like you teachers out there. Anyway, we had homework. We had to take an online test to discover our Myers-Briggs personality type. Have any of you done this Myers-Briggs? It's a personality profile that many workplaces engage to help determine behavioral patterns and preferences of employees that can help to get folks to understand themselves and their coworkers better and hopefully get along a little more and be more productive in their work. Well, when I took mine, I learned, much to my gratitude, that I was the same Myers-Briggs test type that I was back in 2011. So a good chunk of my life, okay? 10 years ago, an ENFJ. Any ENFJs out there? Oh, Liz. Anyway, for those of you who are like, what the heck is this minister talking about? An ENFJ stands for 4 words. E for extroversion, which relates to where I focus my energy. N for intuitive, it's a cheat, which relates to how I which relates to how I process information. F for feeling, which relates to how I make decisions. And J for, get this, judging, which relates to how I practically live my life. Now, this is not a sermon on the Myers-Briggs, but I did notice one thing about my results from the online test, which was that whereas 10 years ago, I was also an ENFJ, excuse me, I lost my spot. Whereas 10 years ago, I was also an ENFJ, this time in 2021, one of my letters was less clearly defined. Something has softened or changed, or at least has become more conflicted. And that is namely the J in ENFJ. I'm just joking if you're a J. It's a good quality to have. J for judging. But this for me came back slightly less indicative as a preference, at least for this free online test that I took, which made me wonder, of course, what is this other letter that I might be moving towards or preferring more often? And that is P. P for perceiving. Perceiving is something that has snuck up on me in these past 10 years. And I expect a lot of it is due to our ministry together during this pandemic and due to my own life experiences this past year, which have required me to be more open, less rigid, more curious, less conclusive than I may have been as a young adult. So I sat in that all-day class on leadership with fellow Bartholomew County residents, and at one point I got lost in thought, not surprisingly, thinking about the series of events that would come to unfold during the remainder of this week. Hattie's pregnancy was progressing to a point that the time was nigh, that it would be good to share this news with the congregation. Yet she and I both knew that that news was more complicated than just merely a hip hip hooray e-blast announcement. As you may have read in the email that went out on Friday, our second child would have been born this past Monday, the 13th. And that loss remains present and real, even with the exciting news of our current pregnancy progressing so well. As I sat there, I thought to myself, how do I convey the joy and sorrow in a meaningful and honest way? Well, one thing is true. J energy, as in ENFJ, would make that a lot harder. Judging judging types like order and linearity, not messiness and go with the flow. And yet the past year has taught me, and my heart has taught us as individuals and as a congregation, the sometimes tough truth that life is not always orderly and straight. Oftentimes, it is not. It can be messy, painful, confusing, and filled with loss. And then it hit me. It hit me in that room. Some clarity came to me about what I have been grappling with the past couple months. That is, I found some language to describe this vision of relatedness, this tension between the personal and the professional, the familial and the congregational, the relatedness between my family and our wider family here at UUCCI. And it came to me by way of the hymn we heard during this morning's offertory music, Come Sing a Song with Me. I absolutely love this song. It is easy to sing. It is not complicated musically or lyrically, and it embodies the essence of choosing to be in community, choosing to be on the journey with others here on Sunday mornings and throughout our lives. Come Sing a Song with Me is an invitation to experience life in community, all of us, through both our joys and our sorrows, to sing together and grow together, to walk through rain and share a rose, a symbol of life and love in wintertime together. This past year and throughout the pandemic, I feel like the tenderness and complexities of family planning and congregational planning have been palpable. They have become sticky, and at times too much to bear. To nurture and grow one's family, to nurture and care for one's congregation. These multi-generational longings for connection across the generations, across time, it isn't as easy as it seems. I have mentioned to you all in the past about our struggles with fertility, a reality that on average 1 in 8 couples face. Many of you have struggled with fertility or are struggling right now, or you may know people who struggle or have struggled. That barrier to becoming the type of family that you long to be or they long to be is a real existential struggle. And then about twice as many women experience pregnancy loss, about 1 in 4. That felt like a real slap in the face, at least for me and Hattie, to struggle with both fertility and pregnancy loss. The outpouring of love and stories from you over the weekend by email and text and in person about your care and concern, and even sharing your own experiences has meant so much to me and Hattie. I can't say that enough. That tenderness that you share, has given us more strength to carry on as we navigate this pregnancy and our journey as a family. I wonder, where's that book? I wonder why sometimes pregnancy and family planning feels so life and death, or at the very least, serious and solemn, sacred even, while on the other hand, nurturing and tending to our multi-generational congregation doesn't tend to feel nearly as existential. After all, our all ages community is made up of the very families, such as mine, that have experienced or are experiencing these struggles and tragedies. After all, the joys and sorrows of our community is an amalgam of each and every one of our individual highs and lows, triumphs and setbacks, achievements and heartbreaks in life. And here, together in this community, we choose to gather not just in sunshine, but sometimes in rain as well, not just in times of celebration, but in times of loss, which we all have known. How then do we, each of us, practice opening our hearts to deeper human connection and to seeing one another more fully in our complexity, in our fragility, and in our same very human need to be loved? We all so desperately long to be loved, to be part of a family, biological and or chosen. We long for a new beginning, and perhaps through this past year and through this pandemic, perhaps the possibility of that new beginning is becoming harder and harder to avoid. One of my favorite poets, John O'Donohue, wrote a beautiful poem that I'd like to offer again in light of its beauty and its delicate invitation. May it wash over you and open your heart to a new way of being and being together. He writes, in out of the way places of the heart, where your thoughts never think to wander, this beginning has been quietly forming, waiting until you were ready to emerge. For a long time, it has watched your desire, feeling the emptiness grow inside you, noticing how you willed yourself on, still unable to leave what you had outgrown. It watched you play with the seduction of safety and the gray promises that sameness whispered, heard the waves of turmoil rise and relent, wondered, would you always live like this? Then the delight when your courage kindled and out you stepped onto new ground, your eyes young again with energy and dream, a path of plenitude opening before you. Though your destination is not clear, you can trust the promise of the opening. Unfurl yourself into the grace of beginning that is one with your life's desire. Awaken your spirit to new adventure. Hold nothing back. Learn to find ease in risk Soon, you will be home in a new rhythm for your soul senses the world that awaits you. I feel pretty sure that John O'Donohue was over my shoulder and saw my results from my Myers-Briggs test. I think that he was just in that class, Columbus Learning Center, saying, do this reading, do this reading. He must have been. These words feel all too relevant, at least to me. Right? Though your destination is not clear, you can trust the promise of the opening. Unfurl yourself into the grace of beginning that is one with your life's desire. Whew, that is a scary thought, at least for this ENFJ. But that P for perceiving opens my heart, softens my grip, says to me gently with grace, these new beginnings before me and my family and before us as a congregation call us from our deepest desires to walk through the uncertain thresholds to the new morning rising. I invite us all, each of us, to take seriously, solemnly, to take as sacred the invitation we offer at UUCCI to come share a rose in rain with me. Come share a rose in rain with me. Share it with one another, the rose, the umbrella, the shoulder, the encouragement. Come, for the place in which we are headed is not only multi-generational family, but a congregation made up of all ages, that in its desire to be of service to this world, we do what must be done to take the next step, to sing the next verse, to serve the next child or teen, young adult or elder. For in doing so, we are fulfilling at least 3 of our purposes in life: to love, and to love. May we all think deeply and act boldly in serving our community and this world in love. May we recognize the veil is thin between life and death, and between what happens here and what happens in the rest of our lives. As we navigate back and forth across this veil, may our openness invite vulnerability to see one another more deeply and to come to know ourselves in new and surprising ways. Together, let us move forward in love. May it be so, and amen.